This is 5 on 20 News, where the news is on sale because the newscasters are online shopping, with Madison Brodsky
and Alex Kack.
Coming from our studio in downtown Tucson. First, the local headlines. If you saw fire off the State Route 90 this morning, don't be alarmed. The city of Sierra Vista was just conducting some of its annual controlled burns. These fires, along with others planned for late January or early February, are meant to facilitate recharge at the city's wastewater treatment facility, clear dying vegetation, aerate soil, and reduce mosquitoes. We at 5 on 20 do not suggest trying this at home, no matter how itchy your bug bites get.
University of Arizona students will have the opportunity to study politics under Noam Chomsky. Chomsky, alongside Emeritus Professor Marv Waterstone, will be teaching a 7-week course called What is Politics? This course, which is unfortunately full, was offered as a general education course for U of A undergrads and a humanities seminar for community members. The class will cover such topics as climate change, expansion of militarism, and the effects of globalization and unfettered capitalism on social inequality. The class will begin in January. Local bartenders are preparing for the influx of philosophical debates and are being warned to look out for anyone with a beard ordering a craft beer.
When talking space exploration news, the folks at the University of Arizona or Tucson-based Planetary Science Institute are never too far removed from the action. The Institute shared their findings that point to the discovery of Mercury joining the ranks of Venus, Earth, and Mars as a tectonically active planet. Previously thought to be inactive, new high-resolution images indicate small-scale thrust fault scarps. University of Arizona PhD graduate and Planetary Science Institute research scientist Maria Banks is a co-author on recent tectonic activity on Mercury revealed by small thrust fault scarps, had this to say. Steady meteoroid bombardment quickly degrades and destroys structures this small, indicating that they must have formed relatively recently. They are comparable in its size to very young fault scarps identified on the lunar surface attributed to shrinking of the moon. We've yet to hear an official response from Mercury quake deniers because, after all, you can't have a valid scientific discovery without in-depth reputation.
Police brutality has taken a new form here in Tucson. A local woman has filed a claim against the city after her Chihuahua was attacked by 2 police canines. Cynthia Weeks was walking her dog through a residential part of town when the off-duty police dogs escaped their handler's home and performed an impromptu stop and frisk on the innocent dog using their teeth. Officer Chris Fernaglio, the dog's handler, wasn't home when the incident occurred. Whether he or his dogs will face any punishment has yet to be determined. The Chihuahua mix required 2 surgeries after the attack, and Cynthia Weeks was also hurt during the scuffle. The city has 60 days to respond to the claim.
Now, in national and international news.
Here's a real story about fake news. Did you hear about Hillary's drug holiday before the debate in Las Vegas? How about the activist who was paid $3,500 to protest Donald Trump? These clickbait articles and videos lured our terrified conservative grandparents down a rabbit hole of bullshit and sensationalist headlines. Some of these propagandists can be tied to Trump's inner circle. Laura Ingraham is a conservative radio host and a top pick for the White House press secretary. Her media group runs a site called LifeZet, which released the video Clinton Body Count, a video that was seen over 14 million times on Facebook and makes a case for Clinton's involvement in the JFK Jr. plane crash. Floyd Brown is a Republican consultant and a longtime friend of Trump campaign manager Kellyanne Conway. Brown runs a slew of tabloid-style conservative echo chamber news outlets, including Western Journalism and the Conservative Tribune. These sites produce wildly exaggerated articles with titles like "Muslims Ordered to Vote Hillary" and "Obama Urges Illegal Immigrants to Vote Without Fear of Getting Caught." Thanks to Facebook clicks, Brown's websites get more traffic than the Wall Street Journal, CBS News, and NPR. Other purveyors of pro-Trump propaganda, however, were just in it for the clicks. See, every click is a fraction of a penny in ad revenue. Fake news producers lean conservative in their articles because apparently Republicans just don't fact check. Paul Horner made $10,000 a month during the election, posting the most ridiculous pro-Trump stories he could cook up. Many of his stories were shared, liked, and retweeted as fact by Trump supporters, including Trump's son, Eric, and a former campaign manager. Google and Facebook have announced plans to crack down on fake news, but with Trump on his way to the White House, the dog has already been wagged.
Fidel Alejandro Castro Ruz, better known as El Caballo, El Jefe Maximo, or simply Fidel Castro, died on Friday at the age of 90. Castro led the Republic of Cuba for 47 years before passing power to his brother Raul in 2006 due to his failing health. Cuba was brought to the forefront of world news after the U.S.-backed coup attempt at the Bay of Pigs put Fidel on the Soviet side of the Cold War. This led to the Cuban Missile Crisis the following year. Hundreds of thousands fled Cuba during his reign. Political opponents were executed, free speech and press were outlawed, even Christmas was banned in Fidel's Cuba. Private businesses were nationalized, food was rationalized, but to label Castro an all-out villain does not paint the full picture. Castro brought universal education and health care to Cuba, raising the literacy rate to 95% and life expectancy comparable to the U.S. Castro inspired revolution throughout Central and South America, as well as in Africa. He even sent troops to Angola to fight the U.S.-backed apartheid government in South Africa. Whether you mourn the loss or celebrate it, as many Cuban refugees in Florida and across the country have been doing since the news broke, one thing cannot be denied. No one individual did more to shape the events of the second half of the 20th century than Fidel Castro.
Green Party nominee Jill Stein has called for a recount in several key battleground states. If you asked notorious Twitter troll and now President-elect Donald Trump whether he thought this was a good idea back in October, he likely would have said yes. That was before his surprising win. His presidential election campaign had pivoted into a personal face-saving campaign, calling the election rigged on numerous occasions, even saying that he wouldn't accept the decision if he lost. Clinton currently has a 2.2 million popular vote lead, but Trump won the Electoral College, an institution he himself referred to in 2012 as a disaster for democracy. With that system now working in his favor, Trump has changed his tune, now calling the Electoral College genius. Jill Stein has raised over $6 million to fund recount efforts in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. The Wisconsin recount was filed on Friday. The Pennsylvania recount was filed earlier today. The fundraising campaign can be found at jillstein.nationbuilder.com/recount. The campaign asks for an additional $700,000 to fund the Michigan recount. Now, despite his win, Trump is still crying voter fraud. In a tweet sent yesterday, Trump claimed he won the popular vote if you deduct the millions of people who voted illegally. If that's the case, Mr. Trump, shouldn't you want a recount just as bad as everybody else?
In case you forgot the true meaning of Thanksgiving, the U.S. Army will be removing natives from their land next week. Colonel John W. Henderson of the Army Corps of Engineers have given the order for Standing Rock protesters to clear out by December 5th or face arrest. This decision is necessary to protect the general public from the violent confrontation between protesters and law enforcement officials that have occurred in this area, and to prevent death, illness, or serious injury to inhabitants of encampments due to the harsh North Dakota winter conditions, is what the colonel said in a letter to the Standing Rock Sioux tribe leader. If the weather is a concern, why are the police spraying protesters with water cannons in freezing temperatures? If the health of protesters is a concern, maybe it could have been last week when Morgan County Sheriff deputies threw a concussion grenade at a 21-year-old woman. Sophia Walensky will likely lose her arms thanks to those jackbooted jackasses. So far, 26 protesters have been hospitalized, more than 300 injured, and more than 500 arrested since August. President Obama has been too busy handing out medals to celebrities and picking out a turkey to pardon to make a decision on the fate of the pipeline. Likely, that will be left up to President-elect Donald Trump, who owns a significant amount of stock in two of the companies behind the pipeline. The Army Corps of Engineers have reserved a free speech zone south of Cannonball River for protesters wishing to remain, but many of the 5,000 or more protesters have no intent of moving.
NASA has discovered a large deposit of ice on Mars. Utopia Planitia, which loosely translates as the Plain of Paradise, is an area of land larger than New Mexico. According to a series of scans from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, just 30 feet beneath the Martian surface is a sheet of ice the approximate volume of Lake Superior. This deposit is probably more accessible than most water ice on Mars because it is at a relatively low latitude, and it lies in a flat, smooth area where landing a spacecraft would be easier than at some of the other areas with buried ice, said Jack Holt, who co-wrote the Utopia paper. Scientists had hoped to find liquid water in more than 600 passes they made over the area with deep ground-penetrating radar, but they came up empty on that front. Still, Utopia Planitia has much to offer in helping Earthlings unravel Mars' past.
This was Madison Brodsky
And Alex Kack.
for 5 on 20 News. Next up, the second installment of Anis's Art Talk with Monsoon Collective, followed by Dead People with Sean Major.
I'm going.
You're on?
Yeah.
Okay. You don't get it. I went to Sacred Heart, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about yourself as an artist. What brought you to art in the first place?
Art's very, I was introduced to art in rehab.
Okay.
So it's
Do
very...
you want to talk a little bit about that or no?
Sure.
Okay, what were you in rehab for?
Cocaine
Okay.
addiction.
It's very addictive, that's fair. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah.
So you were in rehab and they had you doing exercises as therapy, or you met other artists, or what exactly happened?
So it was like a treatment center at a boarding school. So we were receiving treatment, like therapy. I was there like 16, 17, 18. But yeah, that was in Vermont, and my art teacher was like the most amazing, free person, and just introduced me to a lot of things. I did I threw a whole fashion show under her. I started painting, like my first paintings there.
Cool. So that was the first time you were introduced to art. And then where did you go from there?
I went to business school.
You were like, screw the art shit, I'm gonna go into business. How did that work out for you?
Not very well. Dropped out of business school.
So at some point you turned back to art,
Yes. And then I went to art school.
and then hence Monsoon Collective, right?
I dropped out of school. I went into like hibernation for a few years. I call it incubation, really.
I think I'm about to go into hibernation. So like, no matter how much I eat, I'm still hungry. And I think my body thinks it's going into hibernation. It's like, oh, like, Trump is president. Like, you better prepare for the worst. Like, let's get ready for this. Yeah. Like, I swear, I'll eat all day, and like, no matter what, I'm still hungry. Like, and I just like want to like look myself in the mirror and be like,
You're
hey,
lucky. You're
stop.
lucky.
Like, besides Caleb, who are some other artists that you're featuring here?
So we have Michael B. Schwartz, who is a really big part of our community. He does a lot of like youth education and community work, community activism. He's done a lot of like the Tucson Mural program that went up this summer. He directed that. And What else? He has murals all over Tucson.
Cool.
Yeah. Just projects done like with the community and stuff. So we're adding, I think, 6 artists to the mix.
Okay.
Yay. But I'll just go through the building.
Yeah, let's do it.
So like my neighbor is Lisa Watanabe. She went to art school in Chicago and just moved back to Tucson. We have Rogo. He is
Skate room, right?
the skate room, yeah.
That's the unofficial term that I
Yeah, the skate room.
The skate room.
He teaches skateboarding at the YMCA, but he also does screen printing and illustration and collage and cool like skateboard stuff. Caleb Gutierrez did a really cool like retro installation, all white with a colored mural. Katie Curtin and her boyfriend Oscar Lopez did an installation, the Touchy installation.
Touchy installation.
It's a sensory. Ooh. It's a sensory installation. She's a youth art educator and he is an architect, but her youth art program, Children of the Desert, has an installation here. And they hung portraits and like projects that they've been working on, and they did a mural.
And any kid in Tucson can get involved with that, right?
Yeah, Children of the Desert. It's run by Katie Curtin.
That's really cool.
Let's put some joy into this bitch.
Do you see anything besides a dragon, a uterus, or angry eyes?
Let's see what we see. No, because I can only see those things. This needs some like magic in it. Some Jesus. It needs Jesus.
Crazy with it. Yeah, do something crazy.
Is there any like message in particular that you try to get across in your art?
Not really. I just like to, in my art, I like to portray a lot of like beauty and joy and experimentation and positive things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're not like one of those people that is at home like, I hate the world, like when we make some art, like.
No, that's like my youth, you know?
Yeah, that's what youth is for.
That's back there.
Sure, that's what youth is for.
Glitter in my wine. There's so much in there.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, cool. So this is Ania Spintella with 5120 with Violet Pierce today. And we'll see you here for the grand opening of the second half of Monsoon Collective.
Yay.
Have a good one.
You want to do it again because I interrupted you.
Outro.
Magical beans.
Water break.
Wine break.
Are you one of those guys that like always has his zipper down for fashion?
Oh, I usually have my penis out. That's the thing.
For fashion.
Just for fashion.
For fashion,
Thank you.
yeah.
Appreciate you.
I have a passion for fashion.
So, life is for the living, death is for the dead. Let life be like music, and death a note unsaid. Langston Hughes said that. Today on Sean Sees Dead People, that's me, I'm Sean. We'll learn about the deaths of a talent of stage and screen, an architect slash sculptor, and a Buddhist monk, and a very famous cannibal serial killer. So let's go. On this day, in the year 1262 AD, Shinran, a Japanese Buddhist monk, died at the age of 90. Shinran is recognized as the founder of the Jodo Shinshu, or True Pure Land School of Buddhist philosophy. For many centuries, it was the predominant form of Buddhism in Japan, and it's characterized by a strict adherence to the 3 Pure Land Sutras. It's in these sutras that the Pure Land is described. Pure land, in case you're not getting that, is described as a land of beauty that surpasses all other realms. It is said to be inhabited by many gods, men and women, flowers, fruits, and adorned with wish-granting trees, and where rare birds come to rest. The Sutras of Pure Land Buddhism also preach that Dharma, which is the principle of cosmic order in Buddhism, is democratic and without distinction of social class. So this is one of the reasons why the religion is so popular. On his deathbed, it is said that Shinran was chanting the prayer which would get him into the Pure Land, so I can only assume and hope that he made it. From the prayers of the Pure Land to the architecture of it, on this day in 1680, Renaissance sculptor and architect Giovanni Lorenzo Bernini died at the age of 81 as a result of a stroke. In his lifetime, he produced a large volume of Italian architecture and sculpture, to include many parts of the Vatican in Rome. In 1623, upon the ascent of Cardinal Maffeo Barberini to the papal throne as Pope Urban VIII, and Bernini's subsequent near monopolistic patronage from the Barberini Pope and family, Bernini began to get a lot of work. He designed the Piazza San Pietro at St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City. It's the altar inside the Vatican Cathedral that is often praised in art history classes for its elaborate and symbolic imagery. Called the Baldacchine, the altar was one of Bernini's first works during his time at the Vatican, and it was this piece that earned him some of the larger scale projects later on. Bernini remained physically and mentally vigorous and active in his profession until just about 2 weeks before his death, at which point he died of a stroke again. So yeah. And so now for something a little more frivolous. On this day in 1976, famed actress of stage and screen Rosalind Russell died of breast cancer at the age of 69. Russell had somewhat of a modest life for a Broadway and Hollywood star, having only married once to the same man she was married to when she died. But it was her eccentric roles that brought her a lot of attention. One of her more memorable roles was as Auntie Mame. In this movie, she basically takes in or adopts her nephew when her uptight, Trump-supporting brother suddenly dies. Mame's extravagant lifestyle is mesmerizing to the boy, though as he ages, it becomes a little embarrassing. And the good news is there's going to be a remake of this movie for those who don't like to watch old movies, which should be coming out soon. And if you're used to some sort of grotesque or cringeworthy things on Shaun Sees Dead People, and you were waiting for it this week, here it is. On this day in 1994, serial killer and cannibal Jeffrey Dahmer was bludgeoned to death in the head while in prison. The Milwaukee cannibal was 34 years old when he died. Not only a cannibal, but a sex offender. I can only assume that the rumors about what happens to sex offenders in prison must be true. The last time he was seen alive, 2 inmates were escorting him to another part of the prison, and he was never seen again alive. And of course, his mother was outraged, but I'm sure that many survivors of Dahmer's victims probably celebrated his death. So I have a couple of questions for you guys. First of all, who here has been to Rome?
I have.
You have been to Rome,
Yes.
and so you saw some of Bernini's architecture.
Yes, it was beautiful.
Great. Speaking of have you seen, or here's another have you seen question. We talked about it earlier, but neither of you have seen any Rosalind Russell movies.
I can't say that I have, no.
Okay.
You know, the thing is, though, is we both probably have a million times flipping through the channels, but it says something about the way that a fame dies down after you die.
That's true. Now, did either of your parents have like a contingency plan if they were something tragic were to happen to them, like who you would have to live with? Did you know about this?
If they did, I don't know about it, or if they do, I should say.
Okay.
I mean, I was raised Catholic, so I had a godfather. I'm not sure how well planned out or discussed that ever was between the two of them, though.
Sure.
It's a decision over drinks, probably.
So of all the meats that humans do eat, which one do you think tastes most like human?
Whoa.
I mean, you said it was going to get grotesque. Canned ham, obviously.
Canned ham?
You ever seen a canned ham?
I feel like you'd have to cure that meat a little bit. And then, okay, so my final question is, if you were to make it to the Pure Land and you got to wish on the wish-giving tree, do you know what your wish would be?
If I told you, it wouldn't come true.
Well, it might.
I think to be happy and for everyone I know to be healthy.
All right.
To be 2 inches taller.
2 inches taller?
2 inches
but
taller.
You're like the tallest person here.
I know, but I'd really like to be over 6 foot. This is honestly just the fact that I'm wearing lifts and sitting in a tall chair.
Oh, wow. You hear that, Tucson? Alex isn't as tall as he looks on TV. And that was my death report for today.
Yay!
Stays. Me?